The proper treatment for elbow problems depends on the type and cause of the elbow problem. We will go over the main causes of elbow problems as well as the corresponding fixes. Moves such as iron cross, supinated planche, and back lever are very taxing on the elbows, and you need to progress slowly with them in order to stay safe. Additionally, you can add high rep bicep curls into your workouts, as this helps to condition the tendons. Don't progress fast with these moves or attempt a progression that you aren't really strong enough for, and make sure you add in the bicep work as I already mentioned. And of course, this is all assuming that you are actually using proper form when doing the exercises, as improper execution is going to be covered later in the video. Also, I am opposed to training supinated back lever at all, and in my view, the only people who should be doing it at all are very advanced athletes who use it to transition into planche and Maltese and some other moves. The strain that back lever imposes on your biceps and wrists is strikingly similar to the resting position for preacher bicep curls, and this exercise is notorious for causing bicep tears and elbow problems. Because of the innate risks in this exercise, and just the fact that it isn't even cool, I wouldn't recommend touching it at all. Also, when you're doing straight arm exercises, you need to make sure you lock out your arms completely, because if you have them slightly bent, it can strain your biceps and your elbows in a way that these exercises are not supposed to strain them. I used to have some very bad elbow tendonitis that was actually a consequence of my severely inhibited wrist mobility. Because of poor bone structure, wrist mobility has always been a weak point for me, and it was only until I learned this drill, that was shown in my straddle planche tutorial by the way, that I was able to increase my range of motion. All you do for this is wrap a resistance band around both sides of your wrists, move far enough forward that you can feel the band pulling your wrists back, and then do the typical wrist stretches and drills that most calisthenics athletes usually do. Also, pick up a lacrosse ball and do these drills on both the top and bottom of your forearms each day. This exercise can also help a lot, although it won't independently give you the mobility that you need to perform planche on ground and other hard moves. However, it still doesn't hurt to add it in. Since I used to not have enough wrist mobility though, every time I would do a move on the floor, my body weight is what would force my wrists into the proper position. To compensate, I would use an improper elbow position to ease the burden on my wrists. So just make sure your wrists are mobile enough for floor movements, so that way you are not forced into elbow compromising position. Biceps are a difficult muscle to stretch, but it is crucial to keep them loose, especially when you're training for straight arm moves. Fitness FAQs covers how tight biceps lead to the creation of malformed tissue, and this sort of makes intuitive sense. My biceps used to be so tight all the time that I could not properly straighten my arms in order to use the correct form in my planche progression and other straight arm exercises, thus putting my arms in a suboptimal position. I tried many stretches and drills to fix this, but what finally did it for me was this exercise shown in this video at 6 minutes 10 seconds, and the channel is Bodysthenics. It is shown here with some sort of double spherical device, but I just use a lacrosse ball when I do it myself. To perform it, you begin with the ball on the lower part of your bicep, lean against the wall, and move side to side a few times until you feel your bicep loosen up. Then you move the ball higher and repeat until you get all the way to the top of your bicep. Do this on both of your arms multiple times. I find this move easier to do on the ground. Whether you like this on the wall or the ground, it does take some time either way to get comfortable with it and to learn how to do it properly. Also, make sure you do this for your triceps as well. I find the lacrosse ball drill superior to the traditional static stretches for arms, but you can still use these stretches in addition to the lacrosse ball drill. It can be hard to make sure you are actually stretching the bicep when you're doing these, so experiment with the proper scapula and shoulder position that allows you to feel your biceps really getting stretched.
Just a little bit, and now I've got that angle, and man, I can feel it. My hand's pronated down, and I can feel that stretch on the bicep.
It's also possible to develop elbow issues because you have some kind of imbalance. This will mean that either some part of your wrist movement is weak, and that your biceps are way stronger than your triceps. If you are in the second group, make sure to do the tricep exercises that are shown in my arms video for a few sets each day. As for wrists, people will often do exercises such as dumbbell curls and extensions, rice bucket movements, and physical therapy type drills. These didn't work for me since my root issues pertain to immobility of the wrists and tightness rather than an imbalance. However, since a lot of people are stronger with wrist contraction than they are with wrist extension, it can't hurt to throw in some extension drills towards the beginning of your elbow rehab process while you're still trying to figure out what the cause of your injury is. When doing pretty much any upper body exercise, it is possible to cause elbow problems if you use improper muscle cues. What I mean by this is that it is very important for you to focus on using the proper muscles for the exercise at hand. For example, if you are doing machine rows with too heavy a weight, you will no longer be able to use or even feel your back and your lats working during the move, and you will begin to instead use your arms and your wrists to perform the reps. This is not how the exercise is supposed to be done, and it ends up putting a lot of strain on your elbows. So, make sure to consciously think about using the proper muscles for any exercise you do, and make sure to feel the muscles working and contracting as well as you can. If this requires you to lower the weight or the difficulty of exercise in order to do it in this manner, by all means do exactly that.
Pull-ups have caused me elbow issues for the longest time, and the only way I can get around this is by training them on rings. I will also use false grip while doing them in order to further reduce the strain on my biceps. Using a bar for pull-ups puts your arms in an unnatural position. If you do some pull-ups on rings, you will see why this is the case, as when doing them on rings, you will twist your arms inward a little bit. While your arms want to twist while doing bar pull-ups, they are unable to and thus put in a compromised position that applies torque to your elbows. The same thing applies to your shoulders and rotator cuffs while doing pull-ups on a bar. Also, when you are doing pull-ups on rings, it is crucial to be using a false grip, as they are very unnatural if you don't.
Chin-ups have the same issue, as when you do them on a bar, you have to be completely straight, but when you do them on rings, you're going to be twisting them out because that's a natural range of motion. What I just said applies to other exercises as well, so if you can't figure out which cause or combination of causes is responsible for your elbow problems, then consider switching some of your exercises over to rings. Once again, use false grip if possible, and I use chalk to make false grip easier. Shoulder problems stem from imbalances and improper form during exercises. Many people will develop shoulder and rotator cuff issues because they simply do way more pushing exercises than they do pulling exercises. Make sure to keep pulling and pushing in an equilibrium if possible, and add in a few sets of face pulls each day so that way you can make sure and keep your rotator cuffs and rear deltoids up to par. Using improper form and difficult exercises can also cause shoulder problems as well. With planche progressions, for example, if you mess up the scapula position, you can put undue stress on your rotator cuffs and shoulders. Be sure to use a form that is comfortable and that allows you to feel yourself work in your shoulders. Iron cross progressions can be a shoulder shredder if you don't do them properly. In my video on this move, I suggest spending your first week, or even 2 weeks, doing really easy progressions so that you can feel the proper form and avoid injuries altogether. Even though that video came out a while ago, I still think this is great advice. If your shoulders are rolled too far back, or too far forward, or if your scapula is not depressed during the move, then you will probably feel shoulder pain after the set. Make sure to do the progressions with a secure form so that you can keep your shoulders safe. Once again, this is something that has to be learned and personally felt, and that is difficult to describe or teach. For most exercises that you could do, you're going to cause shoulder problems if you are retracted or protracted, because most exercises, you're supposed to be neutral in order to perform them properly. So just be careful, listen to your body, and if you feel pain, make sure you fix your form. Whenever you get to the point where you're rounding your back during the set, go ahead and terminate the set altogether, as this puts your shoulders in a compromised position.
Alright guys, now I'd like to share a couple of case studies of when I actually had some shoulder and rotator cuff problems and how I fixed them. So over the course of making the video, I actually started having shoulder problems and pain when doing machine rows. So what I did is research the proper form and mistakes people will often make during that exercise, and I found out that I was pulling way too low, which put some extra stress on the head of my humerus. So now I'm pulling higher and I do not have any difficulties. Also, I used to do dips with my shoulders way too far back. When you're doing dips that are supposed to target your chest, you're supposed to be rounding slightly over at the bottom of the rep, that way you can engage your chest. However, I was not rounding over at all. I was keeping my body completely straight, and my arms were so far behind me, so much further out of my range of motion than they should be, that I ended up causing myself some minor shoulder impingement. So by fixing my form for both of these exercises, I was able to alleviate any shoulder issues and continue on with my training journey.
Soreness is terrible since it prevents you from training at your max capacity. To avoid soreness, there are a few important things to focus on. One is to train in low rep sets. This is already what I advocate for in order to maximize strength and muscle progression, and part of the reason that training in high reps is worse for results is because it results in soreness, making it harder to train in your next session. The only time you'd want to go above 5 reps or so, in my personal view, is with potentially face pulls, ab exercises, and some light bicep curls when you're trying to strengthen your bicep tendons. Next, you will need to stretch and do rehab exercises every night, so that way you can minimize your recovery burden. Cold showers are reported by some to have increased their recovery abilities, so man up and stop using hot water. Last, as you probably already know, if you're not sleeping enough hours, you are not going to be able to fully recover from your training sessions, so make sure you sleep the optimal amount. Alright guys, I hope you found the video helpful. A lot of this was actually discovered from my own trial and error. I just learned a lot of this stuff from having my own elbow problems, having my own shoulder problems. I hope that you guys can avoid the same mistakes that I made.
I do hope you found some value in this unique video. I hope that you will be able to solve your problem, whatever's ailing you, slowing you down in your training. I hope that you will be able to get that fixed. Let me know what you guys want to see in the future in the comments. I have a lot more stuff coming on this channel. I do apologize for inactivity of the last few months. Go ahead and stay tuned, and best of luck in your calisthenics journey.